Dark.
Good morning, San Francisco, and the rest of the entire interwebs.
Interwebs?
This is TechReact. This is Chris Keefe coming to you live from my new location in San Francisco. Good morning. Marco, how are you doing?
Close the location. Bang. West Coast is being representative. All right. East Coast, West Coast, South Coast. Is there a South Coast?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. We need somebody in Scandinavia next. In the morning to all of you guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today we got a little new, got a couple of new things, right? From the West Coast in an undisclosed bunker is Chris and his cat.
From a beautiful apartment in the marina.
Undisclosed marina.
That's right, okay.
Undisclosed near the Moscone Center. So
I completed my relocation, and my wife and my cat are here, and we're doing fine. And it's an interesting experiment to fly with a cat.
How was that?
You didn't have the cat on your lap, did you?
Well, no. I took points and upgraded to first, and
the cat or you?
The armrest, and all three of us actually.
Okay.
The cat needs a ticket, and the challenge, of course, with the cat is getting through security because it can't ride in a carrier. You have to take the cat out and go through the detector and all that. So.
Did you run it through run it through the thing in one of those little baskets and they would stand it?
Yeah, no.
Stay in the basket.
Make sure you didn't have an explosive collar on it or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you imagine you put the cat on a conveyor and it's trying to go the other way?
That would go viral. Probably better than this podcast.
Much better. I'd pay money to see that.
Me too.
Better than this podcast?
You know what? You should have taken video of you going through with the cat.
They don't let you do that.
Well, then
you
we
ever
would
try
have
to take a picture of the security? They don't let you do that. They really frown on that.
I'm very happy about that.
But if you've got your Google Glass on, they'd never know.
This is true. I saw the article this morning that said that Google Glasses developers are leaving. So.
Yep, it's dead.
I thought it was killed months ago. It's like, Walking Dead at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The headline is "Glasses: The Segway of the 20-teens."
I saw that.
Wow. So basically, in like 10 years from now, when they're doing like a New Year's recap, they're going to show all the glass holes of 2014 and 15,
exactly.
2013, 14.
Well, all three of them?
Yeah. And the barge. The Google barge.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Google Cardboard is going to be right up with that one.
What then happened to the Google barge?
They said they couldn't do it because it was a fire hazard. They couldn't comply with all of the fire regulations. Yeah.
See, I think that ties right into today's podcast.
It's in the middle of the water.
It's offshore internet. How do you tax it?
Yeah.
Would that be offshore internet? Can you actually
probably.
You know what? Maybe we can put a gambling thing. Never mind.
Then it would be good because they could tax it.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're doing a little bit different. Should have got ready for the show. So we're going to try a new technology given to us by the Google guys, and we're going to play a video in our podcast.
So we should correct this. Actually, is a new technology. It's just a technology. There's nothing groundbreaking here.
It's a new integration, though.
Steve, is that San Francisco attitude, Steve?
Hmm?
Is that San Francisco attitude?
Yeah, I think so. I remember they invented all this, so it's not new to them.
He's getting a self-driving flying car. Come on. First one to have it.
That's it, man.
You done, Mr. West Coast?
Yeah, okay, I'll just
This is why
kill
you
him, dude.
always wants to pop a cap in your, you know what?
Cowabunga.
So I figure we'll talk about net neutrality, given the fact that of where we are, especially with Mr. Chris out on the West Coast. Let's see if this works. So this is going to mute all of you when I start playing, and I'll pause it every section, and then we'll take it from there, okay? So, this is Mr. Obama, who is done fixing the healthcare, and now he's going to start fixing the internet.
Awesome.
And I guess it's like, remember the Kerry the debates when the guy goes, I know Jack Kennedy and you know Jack Kennedy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a similar one when we get to the end of this.
Okay.
Let's get started here. Okay, so when this was created, right, the internet was created because they wanted to have a network that was not dependent on any one node, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed and built for the military.
Right.
Yes.
This was a DARPA thing, wasn't it? Wasn't the internet DARPA?
It was a DARPA thing.
Called ARPANET originally.
Right,
Yeah.
right. This was
Defense Advanced Research. Right.
so.
And we all know they were operating on the principles of openness and neutrality.
Sure, as long as you're inside their closed network.
Exactly.
So I came into the internet back in the BBS and the CompuServe, and there was another one, Source.
Prodigy.
Prodigy.
Prodigy was later. I also came in like in the 70s. There was time slicing when I first started computers. We would use computers from a insurance company and get onto their mainframe with our punch cards or with our breadboards when you actually could connect them. I know you guys are too young, but I think you may remember.
Oh, yeah.
I'm serious. I'm being serious.
Yes.
What's your? Well, you were probably. I'm leaving my military life out of this.
Mm-hmm.
That was a different thing, and I don't want to get into it for multiple reasons. But on your civilian, what was your first usage of it?
So I had a Commodore VIC-20 with 8K of RAM, and I had a tractor feed printer, which had, the holes down the side of the page.
Oh, yeah.
And I printed my resume from a word processing program that I typed into my computer out of the back of Compute magazine. And you had to type it in hexadecimal. And then I printed out my resume on tractor feed paper, and I left the tractor feeds on the side. And I went for a job interview at Motorola, and I handed the guy my resume, and he said, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "I printed it on my PC at home." And he said, "You have a PC?"
Well, it wasn't called a PC back then, right?
No, it was called a personal computer. Yeah,
Okay.
A personal computer, not a PC. Yeah, and I remember the incredulity as I met with like 4 people for interviews, and I handed them my resume, and I said, "I printed this on my personal computer," and it was, "You've got a personal computer?"
They figured you didn't need a job.
Yeah, no, actually, that was one of the reasons they gave me the job. But
$277 at Kmart.
Yeah.
That's how much I paid for my VIC-20, and my dad would fight with me because he said to me, "What the hell do you need a computer for?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now neither one of those is around.
If you have one in pristine condition, it's probably worth something.
Yeah, probably not.
Something. I didn't say a lot.
So,
To somebody.
the reason I stopped it here is because the word openness, because it wasn't created for openness, but the real reason is the super information highway, the right, Super Information Highway. What was that, like 1990s? Does he not have the right people advising him, or are they just like Chris and I's age?
The information
Who calls
superhighway.
The information superhighway. Who calls it that?
I don't know who's advising him on this.
He's coining some new buzzwords. That's what we're dealing with here. Old is new again.
Al Gore is probably advising him on this. So.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we're going to start up again. What does that mean?
I got to get my decoder ring out.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about the internet being an opportunity to give innovators a chance to thrive, and if they didn't have an open internet, then there wouldn't be a chance to thrive. However, what does an open internet mean? That's the real question.
Well, yeah. But also, he doesn't understand that this is a global item, right? So if you...
Well, we've got to make it all about the U.S.
Yeah, but if you... Like, thinking that he can actually do something where the Asian, Israelis, the EU can't use it because we're blocking it.
Mm-hmm.
Chris?
Like,
what about China? They have a few users.
I don't know. You know, the whole concept of well, we've got to get further into the concept of net neutrality.
Got it. Here you go. Okay, so he's laying out a plan to keep it open. And the way you keep it open is by adding the federal communication.
Oh, man.
How does that keep it open exactly?
Well, so, you know, the challenge here is, you know, Netflix is complaining that what do you call it, Time Warner and Comcast are, you know, blocking them, right? And they're slowing down their streaming services and all that kind of stuff.
I have not heard, by the way, I have not heard that from anybody because Netflix has appliances at all the major ISPs, like those guys, and the appliances are being fed by dark fiber, not by the internet. So when you ask for a video, it goes to the appliance, not the internet, other than the last mile. It's called, the whole situation is called a pairing. But Netflix is not the only one who has that.
You mean peering?
Yeah,
pairing?
I said.
That's what you said. Okay, so all right. Yeah, but they're doing that, but you know they are doing their pairing. But anyway, so the problem I see with that is it's more than the ISPs, right? Because Verizon, if I recall correctly, a few months ago, Netflix had, for Verizon users, they had a splash screen that came up that the reason why your Netflix experience is so poor is because Verizon is slowing us down.
But it's not the internet. They're not. Verizon wasn't. And Steve, this is your shit. So sorry.
I'm not saying it is the internet, but you're talking about Netflix not being able to deliver their service to consumers, which is what this is really about.
Right.
Well, wait. Hold on to that thing, right? Because if this is a discussion for the Netflix doesn't go across the internet the way that we think it does.
No. I mean, I would not consider the local cable networks that are, let's call them the last mile of the internet, the internet, right? They're not truly the internet. They are the network to your end user, right?
They're just access is all they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you get things like AT&T is being accused of slowing down users on mobiles because they have unlimited data. But they have unlimited data, so they're throttling, right?
But it's not
and Verizon has been But that's your last mile stuff.
Right, but that's not the internet. If you
Right.
if you don't like Verizon throwing you down, go to Verizon. So go to AT&T or go to
Sprint.
somebody else.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
That's okay. Yes, on a mobile, you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
But in most geographic locations, you don't have many choices. You might have two.
Also not true.
If you're really lucky, you'd have three.
No, that's not true. David, you can attest to this. Who was your network carrier?
Well, I think it's everyone has, most people I would say have a choice of three, right? You have a telco you can go through because everyone's house for the most part has some sort of telco line coming in the house that can deliver some sort of service. It may suck, it may be really bad DSL, but it's still a service that's available. Then most houses are wired up with some sort of cable connectivity, not all, but most. And then you always have to cut the cord and go wireless with something like a direct wave or Hughes or something like that, where you have a satellite, which is also a less than ideal situation. And then if we're like Chris and we're really lucky, we've got that dark fiber coming right into our living room because we're in the middle of San Francisco.
Yeah.
He's got the Google dollars he's spending out there. But my point here is this. First of all, I have never been able to see something get better, faster, cheaper by bringing the Federal Communication Commission in it.
This is why we deregulated the networks and the bills in the 90s, right?
Exactly. And so, and by the way, you're talking about the cable. Cable is not FCC regulated.
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
So that's number one.
Well,
Number two is
has minimal regulation. But, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
the
cable's regulated by the public utility commissions, typically in each state or city,
Mhm.
cable is
And-
regulated by whom?
It's local.
by the PUC, by the Public Utility Commission.
Yeah,
So they're regulated by the same people who manage, electricity and water
Right.
Right.
and
Not
service.
federal.
But I think that's the number one. The number two thing is I want to make sure people understand that the internet is not Optimum, or it's not Sprint or
Or
AT&T.
Roadrunner or anything like that.
Yeah, those are not the internet. Those are the carriers. The internet is a centerpiece, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think you can separate that. That's like saying that the electricity that comes out of my wall doesn't have anything to do with the dam on a river 1,000 miles away.
But here's the point, Chris. I think that's a great point because in most cases, your state, my state, most of the other states, we've decoupled power generation from the guys that are bringing the wires to your house, right? So we have
Right.
done that, right?
When we
And
did
that's
that with the telcos already, that all happened years ago with the telcos.
No, hang on a second. Stay with that, Steve, because this is a great point. Please stay with that.
Mhm.
After you're done with your coffee there.
All right. So I mean, I think that's the real question. What is he trying to regulate? Because I think in this analogy, the internet is that power generation provider. The wires are these local, Comcast and Time Warner, whoever it may be. So, what is he really trying to regulate? Is he trying to regulate the generators, or is he trying to regulate the wire into your house? Because the wire into your house, I don't think is the internet.
I think the whole issue comes back to the fact that Netflix is paying tens of millions of dollars to the backbone companies to provide unfettered access or unthrottled access.
But you
On
could
one
do the
end.
same thing.
Right.
Your company, Sprinkler, who's not an advertiser on the show, or not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with this from their own choice. We tried. They were not available for comment. You make that choice because you could actually go out there and get dark fiber to the core.
So that's what he's talking about, right? Is that it shouldn't be driven by dollars.
But you also still can't do that because as soon as Netflix gets a dark fiber from one place to the other, he can't control it.
So the whole issue is it harkens back to the rural electrification program, right? Which I don't know if you guys even remember, but in the 30s and 40s and 50s, right? Lots of people who didn't live in cities didn't have electricity. And so the concept was, if you live in a city and you want to build a new building, it would cost $1,000 to put a new electrical wire into your building to supply it with electricity because it was easy, because the electricity was across the block, across the street. But if you lived 20 miles from anybody else, getting electricity was a $10,000 or a $50,000 price tag or more. And the public utility commissions were created to allow the governments to say, well, people need to get electricity out in the hinterlands as well, and therefore we're gonna take that, we're gonna add a tax to everybody who hooks up a new electrical line, so that we can take that money and supply people who are 20 miles away from electricity and things like that. And so that was the concept, and that's how the country got electrified. And the idea here is that the internet needs to be delivered that same way, that we need to be able to deliver that last mile to everybody at the same time as saying, if you've got a new startup that's going to provide a disruptive technology that's going to be really interesting to the world, you don't need to have to come up with $1 million to buy enough bandwidth to service your customers. And that your service shouldn't be throttled. It should be able to be available as much as you can pay for.
Great. So let's stay with that for a second, okay? Steve, you're an internet. I'm sorry. Let me take it back. You're a network administrator, say, okay? You go to work tomorrow morning and you work for a bank, one near the sprinkler office, which is nowhere related to our company. We get no advertising dollars from
No affiliation.
no affiliation. So you're a big bank of 270,000 people, a couple of blocks away from you know whom. And tomorrow morning you go to your boss and you say, I have a great idea. I listen to the president. I believe in this net neutrality. I'm all in. Starting tomorrow morning, all our packets will be totally the same. They'll be totally going across our internet exactly the same way. We're going to get rid of all the quality of service from our internet. What happens next?
Oh yeah, well, after you get fired.
After you get fired.
Well, you wouldn't because the president told you to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you're good.
Right, because the truth of the matter, not all packets are created equal. Okay, and we're picking on Netflix. If Netflix was such a problem, let's get rid of Netflix from the conversation.
Well, let's
Right,
add someone else
it's
to the mix.
voice, it's everything.
HBO. HBO
Yeah.
just decoupled
Wait,
time their service
hold on a
from the
second.
cable provider.
Hold on a second. Let's get rid of all the videos for a second. Let's only talk TV. Hey, let's get rid of TV as the internet issue.
Well, let's talk data. That's my world. No.
Give me another issue. What else are we talking about? What else is causing the net neutrality issue?
I don't know. Here's a question, because I think Chris had a really good point, because I think some of this is got this wrapper of, it's going to impede on the progress of startups. But I mean, let's really take a look at this and go, okay, what startups have been impeded over the last 10 years? Has it stopped Facebook? Has it stopped WhatsApp? Has it stopped Twitter? It hasn't. Who has it stopped? Who is it stopping?
Is it Stop Sprinkler, which is in nowhere affiliated with this?
I'm not sure who it's stopping, because I think one of the points maybe to think about, we'll bring cloud into this, is I think Chris's point is right. You don't want to pay $1 million, right, if you're a startup for internet. But in all likelihood, if you're a startup and you're building an internet-based application, you're probably putting it on Amazon or Google or Microsoft, right? And those are the guys buying your internet, right? Because you're just paying whatever they're paying, right? And they theoretically should have enough buying power to keep those internet costs low, right? So my concern is what happens when they regulate it, and all of a sudden they lose that ability to have market buying power to force down the cost of the internet or the internet
So
access.
the issue is and I put a link into the chat, and we'll stick it into the article about it's an article on Consumerist where Netflix agrees to pay Comcast to end the slowdown, right? And it's okay that Netflix is a huge company and they can afford it and they can decide to pay and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. The other thing is, suppose that a company like a Comcast or Verizon decides to take a political stance and say that this website, which has suddenly gone viral.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Before you go down that road, because it's covered that in the video. So let's start up the video again. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So, if you listen to this, the only people on the internet are people with telephones, with the tablets, smartphones, and desktops, and it's all about buying something, right?
Right.
Which means it's all about taxing something, is what we're really getting here. It's
Forget
how do we get revenue from that from the government?
taxing. But if I'm the President of the United States talking about net neutrality, all that infrastructure is not about buying something from Amazon. I mean, let's continue. I apologize for disrupting.
That's all right.
So now what we're saying is, because it's funny because I read the act, which is really interesting. It's the same one powering the telephone company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you guys know there's a whole industry that they do nothing but manage the billing coming out of telephone companies? It's called TEM.
Yes.
Telecom management. Yeah.
Because
it's a very, very complicated thing, and it varies from state to state because every state's Public Utilities Commission operates differently, and you have to demonstrate how it's fair and even and all that kind of stuff, and it's a very complex thing.
Well, it sounds like their companies are now companies to definitely be long on because they're going to be adding this to the mix. More services they can provide. How to manage your internet costs.
So, if you look at it that way, it's still a very myopic way of looking at it. That I don't know.
So,
but it's myopic because it's only here in the U.S.
So you start up a service that competes with Amazon, and you go on Microsoft's network, and Amazon decides to say to Comcast, hey, I don't like this competing service. I wish it wasn't going as fast as it was.
Yeah.
So, that kind of stuff is legal today.
Okay, so it's not legal. It's not because if you're talking about Comcast, there was some questions around the practice that Comcast had with Skype, right? There was a story that Comcast was out there purposely slowing down Skype. What happened was when they audited that function, they noticed there was a issue with some of the way that Skype was prioritizing their data, right? But if you have an issue with Comcast, let's just say that Steve and I go out there tomorrow and come up with a data center that competes with Amazon. We've already done that, but let's just say we're doing it again. And now this service is so good because Steve and I are doing it, and we're not using Sprinkler, which is nowhere affiliated with it. But this is so good that everybody in the country wants it. And Comcast says, yeah, you guys are not getting this past this toll gate. Right?
Right.
That would mean that we can
Well,
service the rest of the world
Yeah.
yes.
without being impeded. And you, because you're on Comcast, are going to get shafted. How angry would you be?
Yeah, and you're going to call your Comcast provider and say, you guys need to fix this.
Right?
Right, which is exactly the thing that happened with Netflix, right? And it took about 6 months, and a bunch of people, and they had to prove that Comcast and Verizon was doing something, and that's not easy to do.
Right.
And it came around, because nerds somewhere figured it out. All right, and it was a big deal.
People vote with their wallets and their feet.
Yeah.
Yes, but you don't have a choice to vote when you're talking about a utility.
You do
The
have
last
a choice.
mile.
You do have a choice.
Not in reality. In many places, you've got a single high-speed, reasonably priced provider.
I think if you're talking rural, that's probably true. But I think in the cities, right, or in the major metropolitan areas, you've got some diversity.
In
Well,
urban areas, yes. In bedroom
Yeah.
communities, no. Where I lived in New Jersey, I had one cable provider, and I could use that, or I could get DSL.
Right.
Or you could go
Those are two
satellite. But
choices.
nobody who isn't crazy goes satellite because satellite sucks.
Well, you only use it if you really have to.
I resemble that statement.
But I mean, just for my story, I had Cablevision. It was good, then it sucked. I had it for a bunch of years. So then I went to my local ISP, my local phone company, got their internet, which was good, very, very reliable, great people, but not fast enough. And for all the webinars I was doing and other stuff, I had to switch back to Cablevision recently, but now I have their 50 plus meg service, and they've actually got their act together. It's been working really well.
So, similar story, right? I found out from somebody working at Optimum, that the reason I was having problems during the day, which is where my usage is because the business customers were getting better quality of service, as they should. Okay? And
You're paying for it just as well as they are.
Wait, well, no, that's not true. Because as a business customer, they pay more money than I do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And thus, because I wanted a better service, and I'm on about 130 down and up, I bought a business class service.
And you've got the flexibility to be able to do that.
I don't know anybody that doesn't in the markets that you're talking about.
A lot of people don't know they can get it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's not, because a lot of people don't know the problem that they have, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they just say their internet sucks, and that's it. Period.
Right.
End of story.
Right, but most of the times that the internet sucks is not to the house. It's to after the house. Because they're running PS4s, PS3s, and the Xboxes, and it's all wireless.
Right. Their internal network in their house is mostly the problem. It's just not properly designed to handle their workloads.
Correct. But you know what? Let's go back to the videotape for a second. Or did I got
Sure.
nothing off? So the public has commented 4 million times. What does that mean?
You can go to whitehouse.gov, wh.gov, and comment on a number of things. And if the comment reaches a threshold, which I think 100,000, then they have to publicly reply.
So do they have to publicly reply to Kim Kardashian's butt? Because that one was mentioned 16 million times.
Not at whitehouse.gov.
Right, but does that mean that there's more people interested in her butt than there is on the internet neutrality?
Yeah, but I think they're interested in it for different reasons.
Okay, so let's go back to that, because it talks about her butt coming up. Hold on. Does your cable company decide which site you use?
No.
Actually, I think in February of this year, if you wanted to use Netflix and you were on Comcast or you were on Verizon, and Netflix streaming got really crappy, then you
hold
took a
on.
walk and
That's
you
not a
went somewhere
site.
else.
Yeah, but that's not a site, right?
Netflix is a site.
Yeah, you're going to a URL for it if you're streaming it
Okay.
to a computer or tablet.
Right. So,
It's a site.
so another discussion he had was around lawful, um, lawful content.
Right.
Yeah.
What's lawful
And
content?
so the big thing that the cable companies and people who have throttled and things like that always point to is people who are using BitTorrent and things like that to download illegal copies of movies and music and stuff like that.
I think it's an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And you know they're saying that they're always in the top percent of users, 1% of users, and that they're causing traffic problems because they're illegally downloading all this stuff.
Also an assumption.
So what if you have your entire library of music in the cloud at either Amazon, Apple, or Google? You don't have it local anymore. You uploaded it, and wherever you are, you're just streaming music when you're listening to it as your own library.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that have a lot of usage? Wouldn't it show up as a spike?
It wouldn't that be the same thing as a BitTorrent traffic?
Well, it's not going. You're not downloading 40 gigs of stuff a month.
But you're not doing the same thing, because if you have a stream that's going to the Amazon cloud where your music is in your BitLocker and you listen to it 24/7, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look exactly like a BitTorrent.
Right.
Well, yeah, but in reality, most humans are not going to listen to music 24/7, right? You're going to listen to it for 16 hours a day max, but probably even less than that, because most humans are going to be communicating with other humans at some point in their lives, right?
I just want to go back to what Steve said earlier, that what problem is this actually fixing? Where is the issue? Is this a Netflix issue? Is this whole thing based around Netflix?
Right. I'm just concerned. Yeah. What is the real problem here? Are people? Because I'm not sure this blocking of sites or throttling of sites by providers is as big an issue as it's made out to be. I do think Chris is right. There is a rural connectivity problem, right? Like, as I have some of my in-laws live out.
You mean U.S. problem or world problem?
I think it's more of a U.S. problem. I think the world is so much more mobile access focused than we are. It's much easier for them to solve rural connectivity problems.
Let me just stay on that problem for 1 second, okay? In 2000, when I was working for WPP doing extended websites, and that's all we were doing is doing websites, and I had global customers like Starbucks, Gap, Singapore Airlines, Ford. At that time, now we're talking 2000, which is 15 years ago. If I were to write a website or an application for Asia, meaning Korea, which was the biggest part of ours, or Japan, their speed was 50. 2000, right? People still don't have 50 here.
Yeah.
So are we saying, and I think, Steve, that's where you were going, what if we just upgraded our infrastructure where none of this really mattered?
Yeah.
Steve, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I'm going. I mean, if we're trying to fix a last mile problem, let's put money to the last mile. Let's not add the FCC as a regulator for the entire internet, right?
In talking about the choices, who's got FiOS on this call?
I don't think any of us do. It's not available in most areas.
Really? But
I can't get it, I think.
Okay.
It's the biggest bait and switch ever. People see they have Verizon locally, they don't get Fios, so they'll buy their DSL.
Why is that? Is the FCC going to help that? Is that going to give us the choices?
Sure, they'll raise everybody's taxes, and then Verizon will get out there and use that tax money to go run fiber to everybody's neighborhood.
I just want to stay on target here because I don't think that we're fixing a particular problem.
I know I'm being fantastic about it.
The one thing that we're missing, okay, is the concept that you could use throttling in furtherance of your political concepts. All right, and what if the Koch brothers decided to do something? I don't know if they own anything or have anything.
Brothers,
but
really,
I mean, they're very active, right? They're very active politically, and the story out there is that they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the past election to get Republicans elected to further to further their goals, right? And that's okay because that's legal and that's appropriate and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. The issue is that there's an article in Wired that I shared that several websites elected to deliberately throttle the FCC staffers when they decided that net neutrality wasn't that important and they were going to go in the other direction, away from net neutrality. And these websites elected to throttle people coming from FCC.gov URLs to demonstrate to them this is the power of throttling and this is how it can affect you, right? And that's the concept is, what if you decide to throttle people visiting the Democrats or people visiting the Republicans?
Let's not go Republican or Democrat or Koch brothers for a second, okay?
Okay.
That's almost like me saying every time somebody comes from San Francisco to my website, I'm going to make my website black and white to show them that I can throttle. Everybody knows I can throttle. If you go to yahoo.com, yahoo.com is still 768 up and down because their infrastructure can't go up above that. Not because of it. I can make it 200K.
Yeah, but you're talking about yahoo.com. We're talking about, what if Comcast decides to do something beyond Netflix? What if Comcast decides that they
didn't say I don't want to use Comcast anymore?
But most people, A, aren't going to do that, B, aren't going to realize that it's happening, don't even know it's available, right? Don't know they can get Fios or can't get Fios, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times people simply aren't going to go to the trouble of changing their internet provider because they disagree with political stance.
It's not a political stance. Get rid of politics for a second. But are you saying that internet is a right?
Yes, that's what the president is saying, that the internet needs to be a right.
If internet is a right, then I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a wonderful concept.
You just said that internet is a right. I have the right to drive on my road. I'm not,
And you have a right to fair housing, but you still have to pay for it.
Right.
And you have a right to be able to use services, but you still have to pay for those services. So don't confuse the two. It's not like just because it's right, it's free.
Okay, let's go back to that for a second. So that means that if this is going to be a utility, the more you use, the more you pay, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great.
But what if the provider that you're purchasing it from decides that regardless of what you pay for, they're not going to deliver the same level of service for some organization who they disagree with, either philosophically, religiously, or politically?
Then I'm going to go to another people that think that I can use it faster somewhere else.
Yes, but if there's 10 million people in your city, how many people are going to change because their provider...
That's their prerogative.
That's the issue. If your electric company decided to slow down, decided to drop your voltage every time you turned on your television because they think you're watching too much TV and you need to get outside and do more exercise, there'd be an issue there. That's what we're talking
about. What about companies browning people out for heat?
David, hang on a second.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. Because here's the problem with that. I have to like TV because I'm one of those satellite people. And DirecTV doesn't show all the video and all the channels that my Cablevision shows. Right?
Okay.
Does that mean I have a right to every one of those channels?
Yeah, I was going there too. I was about to go there too, Marco, because I mean the question is, right? So if let's assume that you don't have cable at all, right? I mean, that's your choice of what you're going to watch. If I want to watch Fox News or CNN, I have to vote with my wallet to get cable, right? Or I can decide I'm just going to live with whatever TV is provided to me over the airwaves, right?
At the end of the day, we're talking about companies that work on profit and loss. So if I'm a stockholder in my Cablevision, and I keep calling Cablevision Optimum, being a public company is doing something that I don't agree with, I have more of a voice as a stockholder than I do as a user. Because you're losing money.
And the Koch brothers have more of a voice in
Please
because
stop
they
using
buy
the
a lot
Koch
more.
brothers. Please don't use the Koch brothers, because I could bring up anyone on both sides of the house, and I'm not anyone.
We can bring up Ted Turner, right?
Right. You want to talk about Ted Turner, you know?
No, fine. All right.
No more Koch brothers. This is not. This is not. Here's my statement. Here, my last statement. If you remember the debate where Kerry got said to him, "I know Jack Kennedy, and you, sir, know Jack Kennedy."
Yes.
The same thing goes valid here. I'm a technologist, and Mr. Obama, you're no technologist, and you're not a doctor. Stop bringing politics where it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
No, I think, what we keep coming back to is the last mile provider of the connection to the internet. And
now we're not coming back to that. You're coming back to that.
And where net neutrality plays is, are you getting it on Wi-Fi? Are you getting it over the public phone network or what? And there's a bunch of different ways you can get internet. And they don't want people to make it more difficult for you to get certain kinds of internet that maybe not everybody agrees with, depending on which service or which network you're on.
Yeah, and to that point, that's a good point. I have my Verizon Wi-Fi.
Right.
I have my AT&T Wi-Fi. Okay, I have my...
Where's your Sprint?
It's over there on my tablet because they were doing a really good deal. Any one of them can power my internet. Right?
Yes.
When I leave the house with my tablet, right, I can power my computer through my tablet. Because because the other problem that the politicians make is because they're only backwards looking and the superhighway here, the information superhighway. The problem is that the future looking, there's not going to be any wires.
Yeah.
And that's actually where the FCC gets more involved, right?
They're involved, but they're involved there now.
Yeah.
Those are already FCC regulated.
They have elected not to regulate net neutrality and how the networks interconnect to date. And that's the whole issue, is that President Obama is saying, you need to get involved and make sure that this stuff is fair.
And it's not fair today, right?
It isn't fair today, no.
Okay,
they can and do elect to slow down different networks when they feel like it.
Absolutely, but which one are they slowing down?
It happens mostly on BitTorrent and things like that, which is, nobody complains about. But the question is, who's to know if they're slowing down traffic to Democrats or Republicans or abortion clinics or whatever, in case they disagree with that?
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about singularly slowing down the internet to a person. We're talking about putting the FCC in the middle of everybody.
No,
Whether or not we're running to the individual, I don't know. I don't care about that. Okay.
it's not the individual. It's saying if you want to visit this abortion clinic's website, suddenly it's going to be very slow. And who's to say that that's not happening? Because proving that technically as a customer is extremely difficult. And the only way that they caught the fact that they were doing it to Netflix is because a couple of dozen or a couple of hundred nerds got together and collaborated and said, hey, this is happening to me too. And that's not likely to happen on a smaller scale if they decide to throttle to an abortion clinic or something like that.
Right, and there are
That's the issue.
tools. We have tools today that if you want to test the speed of a website, you can take any website and hit it from 150 points all over the world.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess I see Chris's point, and let me just add two things. I said one, right, today, if you are advertising for a political campaign, right? I mean, the networks have to give you equal access to do a political ad, right?
Right.
You have that right. But that's different than what advertising they show. And I think the problem I have with this statement from the president is it's very consumer focused. It's very focused on what you as a person are buying or visiting or transacting on the internet. It's one thing if he said, look, we need to make sure these providers provide equal access to political data or information, right? You can't block that. But this seems to take it one step further than that, which is what I'm uncomfortable with. Right? He's taken it. He's gone straight to consumer and consumer purchasing and consumer, access versus this is political access, right?
And that's a tip of the iceberg, right? The consumership on the internet is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
No matter how much you're looking at it,
because I think we had a discussion earlier, right, as it relates to enterprises, right? Because today, you buy your internet as an enterprise. You're paying a service provider. They have resisted, or at least for the most part, the federal government has resisted imposing taxes on internet purchases or other things, right? And have left that to local states.
Yes.
Like my state's a perfect example, right, where we fought Amazon for collecting sales tax, and they won, and now if you buy here from Amazon, you're paying the state sales tax. But
okay,
now if you're an enterprise and you're buying internet, now you're paying federal fees, right? And I think it's a slippery slope into now we're going to tax transactions, right? Now we're going to tax because you're using more bandwidth, we're levying more taxes on you. It just seems to be a slippery slope for me.
And here's the fix, right? If you want free internet, go to Amazon, get internet access to their systems, get all your website through a VPN.
Yeah, but most people don't know how to do that.
Right, but I'm sure there'll be services that will spring up once this happens. That through you can say, you can see anything you want at any speed. Here's a VPN. Here's a DNS server. Here's a proxy.
Well, they're just going to be advertising-driven services is what they're going to be, Marco, because they're going to have to generate revenue. So they'll give you a free service in your home or wireless or whatever, and you'll just have to deal with a certain amount of, like when you watch a YouTube video, sometimes you got to spend a minute watching something before it. And they'll just be every time you want to use your internet, you'll have to pay the toll.
We're not going to fix this today. I really do appreciate the panel discussing this really interesting issue.
Yeah, complicated, very complicated.
Yeah, we're all friends here, so we can be as douchey to each other as possible. But at
You
the end of the
East
world,
Coast people.
we'll keep looking at the situation that's being mentioned here, TechReact episode 335, Net Neutrality, and we'll just keep looking at it. That's all.
It's going to evolve, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next week, 9 a.m. East Coast time. This show was not sponsored by Sprinkler.
Peace, dude.
Really, peace. All right. And on that bombshell, we'll close out the proceeding. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're listening to us on Blog Talk Radio or any one of the podcasters, you should have been here. Bye.